Welcome to another episode of Future Institute's Future Talk segment. Future Talks is a monthly podcast organized and hosted by Future Institute, a nonprofit organization committed to growing student success and building a better society. Each month, you will hear from one of our stakeholders, either graduates, program participants, board members, sponsors, supporters, and community members. I'm your host, Nichole Pientka, Program Officer of one of Future Institute's programs, the Future Leaders Initiative, or FLY program. Today, our guests are Chris Sessions and Sara Dietrich, both current interns with Future Institute and seniors in college. Chris and then Sara, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourselves to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, Nichole. My name is Chris Sessions. I am like she said, I'm a senior at Loyola University Chicago. I am a political science and global studies double major. I'm from Santa Clara, California, and I went to a private Jesuit school and high school back home. So it really drew me to a school like Loyola, and then also eventually the career I'm on now.
Hi, my name is Sara Dietrich, and I am the Communications Assistant Intern for the fall of 2021. I am currently a senior studying public relations and business at the University of South Carolina, and I only have one semester left as of now, so I'm very excited to graduate and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you for those introductions. So if you could also I'll start with Chris and then Sara just to kind of keep in order to things. But can you both just talk about your internship title and also briefly describe your role as an intern and day-to-day responsibilities for each of your respective roles?
Yeah, so I am a development intern, which is essentially a fancy word for fundraising. Day-to-day responsibilities include pretty much just prospecting foundations and corporations, any funding source that we can apply to see if they'll help fund our programs. Once we find the prospects, which is already hard enough to do, it's very time consuming. Once we find the prospects, we start off with usually a letter of inquiry or an LOI, which is usually the first step, and that involves a lot of data and just information that we're providing to these foundations. And then from then we are selected to apply for a grant application. These are even more data filled and much more detailed and take much longer and usually involve an in-person meeting with the foundation and the board maybe even. So a lot of it is just filling out letters of inquiry, answering questions. The LOIs and the grant applications are just essentially explaining why we need money and why we're effective in what we do as an organization and proving our measurables and success to those foundations.
As the assistant communications intern, I've helped create and execute social media content as well as write for the blog. In my time at FI, I also helped create content for the first ever gala fundraising event, which is probably my favorite part.
I want to ask you both, and I know, Sara, we talked a little bit about this when I interviewed you, but what drew each of you to interning with Future Institute? Was there something in the description that kind of caught your eye? Was it what we do? Was it the position itself? Just tell me a little bit about kind of why you decided to intern for Future Institute.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be connected with a Loyola alumni who works in development in Washington, D.C. for an international nonprofit, and she really piqued my interest in the field. It seemed like the perfect balance between grassroots work while also being essential to the actual operation of the organization and the work they do. Future Institute specifically drew me in because of the program models. I firmly believe in the power of and necessity of education and how it can help people achieve upward economic mobility. I'm a first generation college student myself, so my parents and grandparents weren't fortunate enough to get a degree, but they've been blessed enough to help me go to college and get a degree. So it's kind of a personal issue for me almost, and that's why I really liked Future Institute.
When looking for internship opportunities, I knew I wanted to gain experience in communications for a nonprofit specifically. I just thought it would be fulfilling. And in high school, I also worked for a nonprofit as a summer camp counselor, and I had an amazing experience. I saw a lot of similar values across both organizations, and I just thought it would be something that I would enjoy.
What is something important that you feel you've learned during your current internship that you feel like that you could take with you into your career after you graduate after this upcoming semester?
One of the biggest things I would say is professional communication is something I learned. I've only worked in settings where I'm very familiar with the office and the people that work there. So starting somewhere completely new is a very new experience I haven't been in before. And also just the culture of the nonprofit world and how difficult it can be because a lot of times it doesn't pan out the exact way you want it to, but when it does, it's extremely satisfying and as Sarah mentioned, fulfilling. In general, it just has proven to be a very helpful learning experience because poli-sci, like other liberal arts majors, doesn't entirely teach you how to work a lot of the jobs in that field. It just provides you with the knowledge needed to do well in those industries. So it's a lot of learning on the job. So I would just say that don't be discouraged to try like a new field or something like that because no matter what, you'll be able to figure it out.
There are a lot of things that I've learned from this internship beyond the walls of a classroom. And the first thing that comes to mind is I learned the power of a strong workflow, especially since this was a remote position. Because of Zoom and other programs that FI uses, I was able to still feel like a part of the team, even from South Carolina. And those aspects definitely allowed me to gain the valuable experience of collaborating. And I think that is really important.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys have learned some skills that you can bring with you to the workforce because I think that's really the main purpose of internships, right? Is just to kind of, get some of those skills that you don't learn at college on the job, as Chris said. So now that we've kind of gone over what you guys have learned, I'm curious as to what your plans are after you graduate in the spring. I know you still have a whole semester to get through, and you're probably finishing up this semester as well right now. But are there any careers you're interested in pursuing? Do you have some kind of careers or like job fields in mind?
So personally, I'm keeping my options open for the spring because I wouldn't want to limit myself. I'm really open to a lot of possibilities in the political science field, but preferably I would like to work in the nonprofit world or in politics in either Chicago, DC, or back home in California. Yeah, anything political, social justice, nonprofit related, I think would benefit me the most because my skills are really best used for that field.
The big question, right? My number one thing is I want to get out of the city I'm in. I am from only 20 minutes away. And like Chris said, I really am just trying to keep my options open, just see where I end up.
Yeah, I should have prefaced that with you don't have to know exactly what you want to do.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
I was thinking about like I feel very similar, Sarah. Like especially with the state of the world right now, it definitely makes it difficult to make plans for the future. So I think that it's best just to go with the flow and kind of just hope for the best and apply when the time comes and like do your best to get whatever jobs you can and make money to sustain yourself.
Definitely think that's a good point, Chris. It's very unknown right now, the state of the job market and especially new college grads. I haven't been able to read much about it recently, but I'm sure it's definitely kind of a 50-50 situation of just who's hiring and what field, they're hiring in. I know just as a point of like not knowing what you're going to do, when I graduated with my undergraduate degree, I just wanted to write, and that was like my only goal is just to be able to write. And I got my first job, and I stuck with that for about a year and just learned that just writing in the capacity of what I was doing at that job was not enough for me. Like I didn't feel fulfilled by it, even though I was doing what I thought I was going to do. And so then I decided to go back for my master's, hoping that would kind of break the ceiling into um, uh, the higher education field. And so I randomly applied for a lot of different jobs while I was doing my master's, and I wound up here where I am now. And I never really considered nonprofit work, but honestly, it's definitely the sector that I would love to continue finding myself in as I go through my career. So, it's one of those things where I never thought I would find myself here, but I'm here and this is what I like doing. And so sometimes you just never know, like you said. So I think both your answers are really good for where you guys are at right now. You kind of have to learn to go with the flow of what is happening in the job market. And I wish you both a lot of luck on that because I know it's hard looking for a job. Just one last question for you both. How do you feel like Future Institute can help college students like you achieve their goals and face all of the challenges that they face, especially as first generation college students, like you said, Chris? Are there anything you can think of that we could add to our programs or continue developing in our programs, or anything you feel like, man, I wish I had this during my college career?
Overall, I'd say the programs are pretty robust and offer like so many services that are not usually offered to college students, let alone first generation college students. I was lucky enough that my older brother went first, so at least I had some knowledge, but still I was kind of blind going in. I remember we discussed this in the meeting we had previously about the workshops and the personal finance workshops, things teaching people how to sign a lease, how to find an apartment, how to do all these real life things that no one really prepares you for in typical education in high school and before. So I think those are like one of our strongest assets in terms of helping students navigate higher education and whatever they're doing after high school.
Yeah, I completely agree with Chris. And I just think that the continuous stream of support and resources will not only motivate and assist students on their way, but also inspire them to look more intently at their future and get more excited about it and see the world as their oyster and see all of the opportunities they can do because they've already done so much.
Yeah, I feel like removing the stresses of and the uncertainty of it all helps the students be able to decide what they want to do even better. They can focus on what they want to do rather than how they're going to do it, and and have like a vision for themselves.
Thank you. That was really well put, and I agree with you both. I mean, obviously, there's always improvements that can be made, and I'm glad you both think that what we're doing currently is helping enough to kind of get students through these years of uncertainty, and especially with a global crisis like COVID, that definitely threw everyone for a loop, no matter where they're at in their lives. So I think we just got to soldier on with everything. So that's pretty much all of the main questions that I had. Do either of you have any additional comments to make?
I would just say to remember the importance of like networking and interpersonal skills, because that's kind of how I ended up with this job. I would never have known about the not development field in nonprofits. I already had interest in nonprofits, but development specifically, I was lucky enough to know someone who got me into it. So you never know who you meet is going to have a connection for you that'll prove to be beneficial later.
Yes, and you can learn something from everyone, even if, a job opportunity doesn't come from it. Just learning from people that have been through it is valuable in itself.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom. It's great to hear that from, current interns, and I'm sure anyone listening would gladly take that advice, especially if they're in college as well and maybe in their senior year too. So thank you both so much for joining me today. I had a
Thank you.
pleasure talking with you and working with you specifically, Sarah, and worked a little bit with Chris as well in development. So it's been great having you both on board for this semester. And then I also like to thank our listeners out there for listening as well. And you can learn more about Future Institute by visiting futureinstitute.us, or you could follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at MyFutureUS.